Hey everybody, it is the Patron live stream here, and so it looks like we've got a couple of people watching. So you guys go ahead and post in the chat who you are, just so I know who I'm talking to, and then we'll have the folks that are looking at the recorded version later. But um, let me give you the rundown on what's been going on in the last month. I've been working with Glenn Seal on doing a relayout of Meet in a Tavern that will then be the layout template that we use for the Jordiba Dungeon Master's Guide. And I'm fairly close to finishing the Jordiba Dungeon Master's Guide. The issue to decide there is simply, do you want to do one that is relatively small, or do you want to take it the extra step into sort of DM tools and so on? The smaller version would probably still be system neutral, like the player's guide. Okay, so Chuck's here. Hey, Chuck. The and I'm leaning toward doing that. And what I've got right now is I've got the descriptions of the places. I've got a description of the planes because of the way that those sort of interact with the rifts. And may really just sort of leave it at that, you know, with some expansions of organizations and things like that, so that we can go ahead and get that out there for people who want to see what's in those different countries. So that won't be laid out by the end of this month because Glenn's on vacation and we still haven't finalized all of the Meet in a Tavern layout decisions. But once Meet in a Tavern is done and those layout decisions are made, then it will be a lot more quickly applied sort of as a template to the overall Dungeon Master's Guide. So that's sort of where that sits. Also still, hey James, also still working on the the snake temple that we were calling Ligatures of Evil. I think is probably the next module that we will do. One of the things that's been occupying a lot of my time over the course of the last month is we were talking to one of the really good 3D sculptors, whose name is Ian Lovecraft, about doing a City of Jordiba 3D print Kickstarter. And what happened with that is that we, and this is with Zach Glazer as well, and what happened was that we sort of ended up backing it up a little bit to him saying, well, hey, here's this Asian city Kickstarter that I was going to do. And so we've sort of ramped that up into something that's not specifically Asian and is a lot more sword and sorcery, that would actually in Jordiba, of course, fit right close to one of the outer corners of the map, but it's the sort of southwest area, on the far side of the jungles in the Chorpang, on the continent of Chor, on the far side of the Chorpang jungles. The Fortress Coast there would be where this would come in. So we've just been working a lot on what these various Kickstarters would look like, first on the Jordiba one and then backing it out to the Asian one. Now that will have benefits for those in the Patreon who do 3D printing, because we will get you guys some free 3D print files from the Kickstarter. But of course, very little benefit to those who don't have a 3D printer. And that was why I was saying at one point that some of the things are going to be, you know, meh for some of the people and, you know, wow for the others. It's going to depend on whether you have a 3D printer or not. So that's sort of the summary of what all has been going on, in addition to the videos that we have done. And I have one video that I'll probably release after this Patron live stream for early viewing by the patrons, because it right at the moment I don't have a slot to put it in, but it's fully recorded, and it's the one with two guys that are deeply involved with the Jorun campaign, and it turned out to be, I was really not sanguine about how this video was going to work out, because neither one of the two guys had cameras, So it's me talking to two icons that blink in and out. But it turned out to be a fascinating thing. And the guy, the older guy that's in this group is somebody who was friends with Harlan Ellison. He wrote a book that Frank Herbert was going to do the introduction to, except that he died prematurely. So the guy and just knows everybody in the science fiction and fantasy fiction community, and so, and which I did not know until after the video, of course, when he was like, well, yeah, I was talking to Harlan Ellison, and Harlan said, and I'm like, wait, back up a second. Um, so anyway, that I'll probably release that video early for you guys to watch. And again, it's not much of watching, but the listening is phenomenal. And if you've ever seen any of the artwork on Jorun, I recommend like Googling, Jorun images or something like that, and taking a look at the stuff, because the illustrator that they had for the early editions of Jorun was phenomenal. I mean, it was like you would see the advertisements for this game in Dragon Magazine and just go, whoa, that's beautiful art. Which never actually was enough to make me pony up for the game, but that's because it was a different game. It wasn't Dungeons and Dragons. I think if it had been a D&D campaign, I would have bought it in a heartbeat. So I'll put that up. Now the funny thing is that in terms of videos, everybody that I know and their dog has Kickstarters cropping up right around this time of year. That I like to do interviews when people are doing Kickstarters, because it's got them focused on their thing. But we've got Tom Tellis, who is going to be this week's interview. We've had Jim Wampler, who was last week's interview. We've got Skeeter, who is going to be the week after Tom. We've got probably this Asian Kickstarter coming out that I'm not sure how exactly I would interview myself, although it'd probably kind of fun to try. But so we've got this Asian Kickstarter coming out. We've got God, what else? Frog God just launched an Indiegogo, and I'm not sure whether I ought to really spin the. I guess Bill wants to make the great big announcement on Monday about what we're going to be doing. As long as everybody promises not to tell ahead of time, or to at least say that you guessed it, I'm pretty sure that what he's going to announce is the Lost Lands Kickstarter coming out. So that we'll finally have a date for the Lost Lands Kickstarter, which is going to be like a 700-page book. So anyway, that and a zillion maps. So that's the other one that's coming out, and so for that, so there's just lots and lots and lots of Kickstarter related interviews that are going to be going on, and we'll have to figure out whether that's going to be a February thing that everybody launches their Kickstarters. So that's where that is. I haven't run the financials on this month yet. We have not made any large purchases, so my guess is that we're in the black this month. Probably by usually when we don't have big purchases, we end up in the black by about $300, and then when we do have big purchases, we end up in the red about 200. But over the course since the beginning of the channel, it seems that we've on net made about $450, $500, something like that, in profits to pay back what I figured was about a $2,000 debt, and that's down at about $1,500 and change now. So so we're not only funding ongoing operations, but we're slowly making a bit of money at it as well. All right, I'm not getting any questions from the 7 of you guys that are in the chat room. So start asking questions, or I'm going to rapidly run out of stuff to say now that I've given the lowdown on what all has been going on. Zach Smith. So here's the thing. Mandy Morbid posted up a thing that described an abusive relationship with Zach. I Chuck, explain what you mean by the community license, if you could, so that I know how to answer that question. So anyway, although I'm always suspicious when somebody posts a character assassination piece that says, please circulate this widely to as many people as you can. But looking at it, I think that there's enough core truth in the stuff that Mandy said that I wanted to get Zach off the show. Was not happy with him, made that clear. So he got the requisite ostracism from the community on that. There are some people who are defending him on Twitter, but I think overall Mandy's description of what all went on just rang true enough that that I believe the core of what she had to say in there. So, all right, community license for publishing Jordiba material. Last month's estimate was July or August. Okay, the only reason that I've been holding off on that was because I didn't have the DM guide to give people as material, and so I thought that it was kind of not worth it. But what I can do, Chuck, is I can go ahead and do a Jordiba compatibility license as of like tomorrow, really, if we want to go ahead and have one. The only reason that I didn't have one was just because there wasn't really anything to, for anyone to grab their teeth on. But yeah, I can do that right away. So yeah, cart before the horse. That was kind of what I was thinking. But no, I mean, we could go ahead and do that. So there is that, which we will do, and then there is the early video, which I will write down to do. And what else would be useful? You can't write that fast. Chuck can't write that fast, so he needs the license ahead of time. What else would be useful? Any more questions that anybody has got? I really should have made sure that I had somebody else on the chat room with me, so that I'd have somebody to back and forth with when I'm hitting dead time. So I could show you pictures of the dog and stuff like that. But any questions? Douglas, you've got to have some questions. There's a 20-second lag, so from the point that I say that, Doug's just going to type in, I don't have any questions. So so Chuck's got an adventure to rescan. Okay. I mean, like I said, it's not going to take any time at all to do the license itself. It really was just that I didn't have anything for people to use. So what I'm going to send out in terms of written rewards this month. No, the new player for the 5th edition game is going to be Jake McEwen. So, who is a lot of fun. I don't know if you guys, if anyone has met Jake at conventions. He's the really big guy who's usually around Ian McGarty and Rocky Gardner. And we're going to do it in the Asian setting down on the Fortress Coast. So we'll have the one group that's in Jordiba, and then the 5th edition group is going to be in the Asian setting, which I think is going to be kind of fun. So I was saying something about that, something about things ahead of time before I got caught off on that sidebar, but I've forgotten what it was that I was saying. Oh, right. For the written rewards, again, it's going to be the draft that I have right now of the DMG, which I will put into a PDF with some kind of fonts, and probably double column it so that it's easier to read. But it's not going to be laid out, and there might still be some changes to it. But that will give you guys an idea of how the overall campaign world is developing. And then, Chuck, I can put your license in that as the first thing, so that you'll have it. It doesn't quite answer when the ETA was on the DMG, James, because they that's the ETA this month for the content, but in terms of a well laid out book, it's going to be after Glenn Seal does the layout first on Meet in a Tavern as the sort of experimental build the template for what things are going to look like, and then does the layout on the revised draft that I do. So at the earliest, I would say it'll probably be another month before the DMG is really out as a book. Is there going to be any Jordiba at GaryCon? Yes, there is. It may still be labeled Mithras Tower, just because that's so that everyone, just because that's been the name that everyone has used. Bill Webb is never going to remember if there's a new name on the thing. He's going to continue calling it Mithras Tower onward to infinity. So I'm not sure about how much we're going to change the name, but yes, there will definitely be Jordiba. And in fact, at this point, I have as much of the dungeons under Jordiba done as I do with the dungeons under Mithras Tower, which is sort of interesting because it hasn't been nearly as many years. But with the party going through some of the dungeons where it's like, every week the possibility of people going in, that's actually built the mega dungeon out a lot faster than the Mithras Tower one. Yeah, and then Douglas, the next adventure coming down the pike is probably just going to be the snake place that we've got for ligatures of evil. Yeah. And so that one should be fast because it's not going to require very much in the way of writing. It's just going to require the going through it with the playtest in mind to change anything that was a problem with the playtest, and then probably going to have to do a monster that is a little bit easier than a Behir, and do some better stats, I think, for the big lizard monster that's down at the bottom. But in general, I think that's what'll come out next, which is kind of a shame because it really does look like Tomb of Annihilation, but we'll do it anyway. Is Mithras going to become obsolete? No. The city of Mithras is on the northern shore of the Sea of Coromandel. So it is part of the same campaign, and it's actually the direct shipping route to Jordiba crosses an island chain that goes down the middle of the Sea of Coromandel. And so they're actually, in time-wise, quite close to each other in the campaign. It's just so when I say is Jordiba going to be in there, I mean it's really the Jordiba flavored mega dungeon that I'm going to be running in the campaigns rather than the more Western European Tudor standard mega dungeon. I mean it's so weird you almost can't say that with a straight face, but there are the two mega dungeons, but they are in the same world and they're actually pretty close to each other. So it's not that Mithras is becoming obsolete at all, but I do kind of have to pick one or the other just because of the idea that it's the sequential campaign arc, that's going on from one game to the next in the conventions. And if you have people saying, you're hopping from the North Sea to the South Sea, I don't know. So I don't have any problem continuing to call it Mithras Tower. And really, I frankly could keep just using the Mithras Tower mega dungeon. Maybe I'll do that. We'll see when we get a little bit closer to the convention exactly how I'm going to do that. Do I plan to release the Jordiba mega dungeon? Okay, that's the answer is no, and I should explain why I don't release mega dungeons that I use at conventions. It's because, for one thing, I may do and that lets me do copyright violations in the things that I'm running at conventions. Where if I want to steal, if I want Conan to show up, I can by God have Conan show up, at a convention game, but obviously not in the mega dungeon itself. So just out of an excess of caution, I don't try and sell the mega dungeons. And frankly, I think that they are so skeletal in terms of the descriptions of them, that a written description wouldn't be that useful. And the maps are available from anyone who's been in them, so it would not be hard for the the Mithras Tower Mapping Guild or whatever it might be to put together those maps and make them available for free, on the net. So, and so that's sort of why I've never really thought of publishing a convention mega dungeon. I suppose that if the upper levels just get mapped ad infinitum by groups of people, that I might do one that has encounter tables instead of set monsters, and that way there's a description of the traps. But then on the other hand, I can't really use those traps anymore if I've described them. So so those are the problems involved with publishing the mega dungeon that I use in a campaign. So what other questions do people have? I said early on, I think we're in the black for this month, and we've actually, in addition to funding operations, we've actually made about $500 over the course of the last year. So that's not bad. That's a comfortable rate for an operation the size that we've got. Talked about the 3D printing stuff. Yes, the patrons will get some free models. Probably not the whole Kickstarter, but some of the models for people who can't. If there's anybody who can't afford to do the Kickstarter, we'll throw out some of the key models to the Patreon, and that way the people who really want all of them can go ahead and buy the Kickstarter, which I have to leave as an option because we do have the outside sculptor partner who would lose money if we were giving away the whole Kickstarter. But for people who don't have the cash for the full-scale Kickstarter but are members of the Patreon, it's kind of like, yeah, but you're putting in some money to the Patreon, and so here are some pieces back for that. Alrighty, well that and also I'm going to put down a really interesting interview out early on Jorun that I'll be otherwise holding on to because of the number of Kickstarters that we're going to have. So that's the synopsis on the live stream. Unless I get any more questions over the course of the next couple minutes, during which I am going to sip some coffee and wait and see if we have any questions. Because it's a patron live stream and I can do this. Also, in the 5th edition campaign, I'm letting them go wild, and I told them they could play any character class from any Wizards of the Coast book. I drew the line at homebrew because Alla Fedorova has been making noises about some sort of genre called magical girl, which I think is the Sailor Moon type of thing. And I'm just not ready quite to try and handle a genre that I've really never watched at all. And if I say homebrew, she's going to, by God, come out. There's some place on Reddit where there's a write-up of a class called Magical Girl. So maybe next time around on that. So what I'm going to do with the 5th edition party is I'm going to, since they're starting a new party, since they got, actually, I'm not going to give any spoilers on the last one. But they're going to be starting up the new party, going to be an Asian area. We're going to call that probably by some other name than Heroes of Jordiba, and start a new playlist and just let it go from there. I think, Douglas, the reason that I want to throw it open to anything from Wizards of the Coast was actually because of the discussion that I had with Andy Markham about Arduin. And what he said in there was that, in a sense, the Arduin approach to things has won D&D. And the reason it won D&D was the Arduin was a kitchen sink. And D&D has become a kitchen sink of all of this, weird-ass shit that's out there. Ronin of Jordiba. Okay, that's really good. I'm writing that down. Okay, so the Ronin of Jordanba. That threw me completely off. What the hell was I talking about a second ago? Don't even remember. Oh, right, about the various character classes in Arduin. And so I sort of figured out, well, fifth edition's got these somewhat constraining rules to it. So if we're going to be playing with constraining rules, let's just get weird on the character classes. And so that's kind of what I figured, was just to go, if you're not going to go balls out on the rules, go balls out on the characters, up to the point of the magical girl character class, which it's not that I have anything against the anime genre. It's just that I have no idea what that even encompasses. And I don't think there's a handbook of the magical girl character class anywhere. So that's the rundown on where we're going to go with that one. I still need to paint. Jake is going to play, I think, a half Asimar paladin or something like that, and so I need to. I've got that sounds to me like pretty much just a samurai figure. So I'm going to do a samurai figure for him. I think that somebody is playing a turtle, and so I'm going to have to paint one of the turtle figures, and I think that's Ian that's doing that, and Gabe is going to play a wizard, I think, out of the core set. So I'll have to see whether I have an Asian looking wizard figure. Don't really think I do. But I can do a sort of a cool silk pattern, I think, on a cape or a robe or something like that. And I don't think that I've heard from Ala yet on the character class. No, last news on Ala was that she was just going to throw it into D&D Beyond and see what came out, and we haven't heard what came out yet. And so there's the so that's sort of what the party is going to look like for the Asian campaign. And what's from White Star? Chuck says, I know it's White Star, but it's a start. Ronin of Jordanba versus the Cannibal Ninjas is White Star? I don't know. So anyway, the Yuan Ti Pureblood Bard, maybe. I don't know what you're talking about, Chuck. So, the Magical Girl supplement is in White Star? It was in no, because it's the Magical Girl thing. It was on the stats for it were on Reddit somewhere. She pointed me to a Reddit thread where people had done that, and then it got abandoned after a while, but people were saying that it was actually a pretty well-balanced character class. My thing's just sort of what the I don't get the anime. Not so much that I don't get it, but I've just never watched enough to see it. One really interesting thing was that I asked him on the Asian Kickstarter, what sort of stuff would you see? And this sort of ties into the anime manga thing. Two of them, of the younger ones, the ones in their 30s, came back with a bamboo forest. And we do have a bamboo forest that's going into it. But when I heard we were doing a bamboo forest, I was like, what the hell are you going to do with a bamboo forest? But apparently some of the sort of mythology of the bamboo forest came in with a lot of the anime that was done. So for folks who watched the anime movies and things like that came out after those of us who are 40 and older were not watching cartoons anymore, really. Apparently, the bamboo forest is part of that mythological fantasy underpinnings of people from that generation in a way that they're not with those of us who are in an older gaming generation. So I was really interested to hear that that bamboo forest idea was a way better idea than what I had thought it was going to be. So, okay, so here's the clarification that the Magical Girl supplement was done for White Star by David Oakham. And so that's one place where I might be able to read about at least what a magical girl is. So what else? So I'll show you some of the figures from the Asian thing that we've been working on. This is a half size version of the pagoda that they're going to do, and so the actual thing is got a base about this big, which hopefully is going to be large enough for a figure to stand here in the area between the little fence and the door. But it's, you know, obviously if this is half size, the thing's freaking huge. And I can actually show you the base that's printing over here. So here is the 3D printer. That is the base of the pagoda that's printing there. So it's almost 6 by 6 inches, which is really big. And what other figures have I got lying around? So we've got, okay, so these are failed prints of the, this is when we were doing structural testing on printing. Actually, this is pretty good. So this is the second, wow. So this is the second floor, for example, of what I'm calling the basic Asian building that we're going to do. And the reason that it's basic is that none of the detail protrudes past the sides. And so you'll be able to put multiple buildings right next to each other, and also the, you know, even the roofs don't protrude out. So that you'll be able to actually have a city of high detail buildings next to each other, which really nobody has done on the floor by floor modular level, because like Tom Tullis, the stuff will fit together, but you have to put together these tiles. And because they're modular, it means that they are relatively low detail in terms of, you know, you can't have any sort of sweeping pattern behind it. Whereas when you've got it floor by floor, you've got a little bit more to work with in terms of that. And so then there's the side. This is the front. We've got a print failure here on the window in the front. That's one of the things that is getting fixed in the next print. But so, and then it's got the little overhanging, you know, roof thing there at the front. And then there's the ground floor underneath it done the same way. So that is sort of the stuff that's been going on in the past, and or in the past couple of weeks. Anything else that anybody's got, or we'll go ahead and end it here? Wait and see. I'll sip more coffee and see if we get any more. All right. Well, I think then, gang, what we'll do is go ahead and we'll end it here. And so if anybody's got questions or anything, we're going to be doing a live interview with Tom Tullis on Thursday. So feel free to ask, you know, any general questions during that one as well. This is clearly Kickstarter and 3D printing month. And so I'm going to make sure that I get out something in writing for the patrons this month. And we'll set up the patron game and all of that good stuff. All right. Thanks, everybody. And we will see you later on.